Welcome into the December 28th episode of Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. The Leafs start the post-Christmas schedule with a win in overtime over the St. Louis Blues. As always, we'll break it down and we'll give you our 3 stars of the game. And then, Dave, we got to talk about this big upset Canada sustained at the World Junior Championships on Boxing Day. I know you were heartbroken. I was, and a lot of the country was, which means probably a lot of Leafs Nation kind of mad about how things kind of went down. So we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the World Juniors as well. Bit of a rough start for the red and white. All that and more coming up on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-star, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs, the daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also now catch us up on YouTube. That's Locked On Leafs on YouTube. And hit subscribe. We've got new content, new videos coming out to you each and every day. It's all Leafs all the time, and it's where you want to be if you want to be part of Leafs Nation. Every Monday through Friday, each day, new videos right here at Locked On Leafs. And Dave, I mean, how was your Christmas, buddy?
It was very, very relaxing.
Relaxing? That's good. Well fed.
Food.
Yeah, well fed. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's well fed, and then you end up in a bit of a food coma for a couple of days.
Yes, sir. It was the fish on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Lots and lots of fish. Then it was lasagna on Christmas Day.
Nice. Very, very nice. Molto bene. So interestingly, my Christmas Eve kind of got spoiled by the weather. I don't know if a lot of people's Christmas Eve ended up getting spoiled, but half my family wasn't able to make it because, we're in Niagara Falls, which is close to Buffalo, and they got hammered along like the outskirts of the city by the lake effect of like Lake Erie and the Niagara River. And it was legitimately like a whiteout. You could not see in like the Fort Erie, Stevensville area, if people are familiar with that side, that section of the Niagara region. It was insane. So I have family in Chippewa, which is right there in that region as well, and they were unable to see. So they honestly just couldn't come out. So it was a bit more of a subdued holiday than it typically is. We could actually speak to each other at a regular tone, not having to yell over top of 48 different people. My fellow Pisons and you, Dave, definitely know what that's all about. But it was good. It's still good. And then getting to spend Christmas Day with the immediate family, and my mother's birthday is on Christmas Day, so it's always extra special to celebrate and stuff. So had a good little Christmas holiday, good weekend, and then Boxing Day came, and it was all about how was Canada going to do? Watch a bit of World Juniors and then watch the game. We'll get to that in a moment. Obviously, we'll talk about the loss there and what was so upsetting about it, and our thoughts on how everything went. But why don't we talk about the Leafs win in St. Louis first? Let's get to that order of business. A 5-4 victory in overtime. Dave, first and foremost, I saw you tweet out on the Twitter sphere. It's games like this that make me excited to hop on to Locked On Leafs and chat about the game. Why is that, Dave? What excites you?
What better
to talk about?
I knew as soon as Justin Hall scored the opening goal of the game, we were going to be in for a lovely night of Leafs hockey.
Yeah.
Just absolute chaos. Sheldon Keefe is ready to kill Wes McCauley. Just from start to finish, like there was no dull moment in that game. Not whatsoever.
Yeah, it was pretty solid. I mean, like there was a lot of goals. We had 9 goals altogether. There's penalties, power plays, shorthanded goals, power play goals. He ended up getting a stick to the face that goes uncalled late, and you got Sheldon Keefe berating the official from then on out. We had TJ Brody take a penalty shot in overtime. It was great, and then we saw some depth scoring also. Like you said, Justin Hall scored a goal. Alex Kerfoot scored a goal. Jarnkrok got another one, a little nifty play where he just kind of shoved it into the net. So, I thought that it was a very entertaining win as well. One that coaches probably aren't going to be thrilled with, and there'll be some corrections that will need to be made going into the next game. I can guarantee you that one. But I want to start with the goaltending, and Ilya Samsonov allowed 4 goals tonight. And, this is now 3 straight starts where he's kind of struggled, been a little meh. A couple of those goals he definitely wants back. Remember, he started that game against Philly right before the holiday, and even he said, "Not my greatest game. Couple of goals that I want back." And then same thing in Washington. It seems like these last 3 games, there's probably 2 goals at least that he wants back in each of those performances. And luckily, like what was happening a lot last year, the offense has been able to I guess withstand some of those goaltending errors, I suppose we could call them, and they're still able to pull off and get W's and get wins. But at the end of the day, this is now 3 straight performances where Ilya Samsonov has kind of, gone back down to earth here. The bubble's starting to burst. Is there some concerns here of the way that you've seen Samsonov play this last few starts he's had?
I'm not sounding the alarms just yet. I mean, it wasn't a great performance. He still made some big saves in this game, but yeah, overall body of work, like we're seeing a bit of a, I think we're starting to see things level out a little bit with him, right? Like we're not expecting him to be a 32 save percentage goaltender the whole season. So I think, yeah, we're seeing a bit of that correction there, but it's weird because, I think they wanted to give him this game to try to, they can see he's fighting his confidence a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the goals tonight, the one that I like, some people were calling him out on the Ryan O'Reilly goal because he got beat clean, but like Ryan O'Reilly was given like, all the time in the world to pick that shot and where he wanted to go with it. Like, I don't think the Leafs played pretty decent, but I don't think they played great defensively, in front of Samsonov, and like the penalties they took were really stupid in this game. But I like that he let in some bad goals, or he did let in 4 goals, but he just worried about making the next save.
Yeah,
right. And
for me, I think the Falk goal that went right through him.
Yeah,
on the power play. That was the one for me where I was like, gotta have that, man, gotta have that.
Yeah.
And that's when it's like, oh, so just kind of confidence at this point. Like I don't know what it is, but either way, they got the win, so I guess we don't need to harp on the guy too much. But I think it's at least fair to say and fair to make the comment that the bubble's starting to burst here on Samsonov, and hopefully it's just a little bit of a rut, because it's not a winning recipe when you're giving up 3 or 4 goals a night like he has in his last 3 starts. Some positives though from tonight. I mean, I mentioned the depth scoring that the Maple Leafs received tonight. Got goals from Alex Kerfoot, got goals from Justin Hall, goal from Calle Jarnkrok. So that's clearly a positive tonight. I thought that the top 2 lines also were, although only Tavares scored a goal, I thought that top line was actually, buzzing throughout the most of the night. I thought they had a couple of really good opportunities. So up and down, I thought offensively they still were playing, really sound, and even in their own end. But what's key and what I've been harping on, or what I was harping on over the last few weeks here, is that this team needs to get more contributions from that depth on the nights where the big boys weren't there. I mean, they got a goal from John Tavares, sure, in regulation, but outside that, it was 3 additional depth goals, and then eventually, Willie ends it in overtime. So, big boon to the depth scoring there, and those guys getting on the scoreboard, because you're going to need that. You're definitely going to need that some nights, and tonight was one of them, and they were rewarded for it with a full 2 points.
Yeah, I think what also impressed me was how much like the Leafs were just trying to get into Jordan Binnington's kitchen, right? This is like they showed a graphic of like Binnington's play through the months and like just how inconsistent he's been. Like Jordan Binnington's been absolutely brutal for the Blues, considering like what they're paying him and all those things and like his antics on the ice as well. I just like that the Leafs were trying to create as much chaos in front of the net there. And like the Blues, we know them as like a tight defensive team that doesn't really allow those, things to get that chaotic in front of the net. And I think the Leafs took advantage of just, that you brought up Matthews, you brought up the top line. Like I thought other than, scoring, they did everything you could ask a top line to do, which was the flurry of chances, extra chances they created, the offensive zone possession. That's what you want to see from that top line. And then what that allows the depth guys to kind of, take advantage of the softer matchups. And that's kind of what they did tonight. Calle Jarnkrok was the way he played tonight was just unbelievable because, he was doing it in all situations. Yeah. And that's what they signed him to do. I think I'm kind of previewing a bit of my 3 stars of the game with this, but like I was impressed just because it's not an easy game to play considering they traveled today. They literally traveled the day of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's after the holidays. So, guys are going to be a little bit relaxed. You have to get yourself into that mindset to be ready to play a game. And, they were fighting things. You mentioned the missed calls by the ref. The momentum swings. It's not an easy game to win, and they found a way to do it. That's all in these moments of the season, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, and just to highlight how dangerous that Matthews, Nylander, Bunting pair trio was out there tonight. 15 minutes of ice time at 5-on-5, by far the most of any forward grouping tonight. That is 63% expected goals, which led the team 11 scoring chances and 6 high danger chances, and allowed just 1 high danger chance against. So, they were buzzing. Didn't find the back of the net in regulation, but Nylander obviously did eventually find the back of the net in overtime, which was the game winner in tonight's 5-4 win over the St. Louis Blues in Toronto. Now up to 50 points the Maple Leafs are on the season. So that's obviously a big milestone for them to hit, I guess, 50 points before the new year. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, let's dive into those 3 stars that we've been foreshadowing a little bit, I suppose you could say, Dave. So we'll do that in just a moment here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. But before we do, Dave, let's talk about one of today's show sponsors, and that is BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball to hockey, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs. Speaking of BetOnline, made some money today. Took the Leafs and the over, and cha-ching, it hits. Nice little parlay there to double my money. So that worked out well for me. So if you want to be making some money, you can do that at BetOnline as well. So the Leafs with a 5-4 win in overtime. William Nylander with an unbelievable play to hunt down Tarasenko, poke the puck loose, and then just the strides he took to create separation there. The burst that he had. What's the word that I'm looking for here? I was shooting it back and forth with Frank Corrado, and he used the perfect word for it: explosiveness. The explosiveness of that drive leading to that backhand goal in overtime was just outstanding. He's a guy who probably, didn't sit there and eat for 3 days straight like you and I. He may have hit the treadmill once or twice. He probably hit the bike a little bit because you could tell those legs were humming at the end there still. And he was rewarded for it with the overtime winner. All right, little foreshadowing, but he'll probably come up in these 3 stars potentially. But Dave, who was your 3rd star of the hockey game?
My third star there's some good performances. I'm gonna give it to Auston Matthews.
Mm.
I thought he did everything but score in this game. Like, you know, like St. Louis had no answer for him defensively. There's so many chances I did think he was gonna score, and like Binnington made some decent saves on Auston Matthews, but I just thought he was just on another level. Like that top line, he was kind of the engine that was driving that line. He was going for those loose pucks. He was taking some tough hits in front of the net. He was doing whatever he could to get those chances on net. Like that top line was just so nasty tonight.
Yeah, he had .69 individual expected goals tonight. Was Auston Matthews by himself? 5 shots on nets, 10 scoring chances. Yeah, he was a menace for sure. I'm actually giving mine to Alex Kerfoot though. I thought that Kerfoot had a really solid game actually on both ends, defensively and offensively. I mean, obviously you've got the shorthanded goal that he had scored, and that was just good work going to the nets and killing time off. And I think Jarnkrok deserves a lot of shout outs for that one as well, but I'm sure we'll get to that. But I thought that Kerfoot did a lot of really good things tonight. He played he plays a simple game sometimes, and that's really what you want out of him now that he's in a third line role. He's not expected to produce, but when he can provide that little bit of offense, it clearly, goes a long way. So wanted to give a little shout out to Alex Kerfoot, who really is playing some 200-foot hockey right now. So thought he should be rewarded with a little third star action. David, your second star of the hockey game.
I'll say one last thing about Kerfoot. The only criticism I had was that offensive zone penalty he took that led to the Blues goal. Other than that, I thought Kerfoot did have a very solid game.
Yeah.
I got to give it to Calle Jarnkrok. Like, he was just everywhere tonight. Like he was in on, on a goal himself. He brought up the like that Kerfoot goal doesn't happen without Calle Jarnkrok.
Oh,
just
outstanding.
His individual effort on that play. Like all that Kerfoot needed to do was just make sure he got his stick on that pass in front of the net. And it almost like he was a little too laxadays. It's also because he had to deal with the defender trying to defend in front of the net. But that's what I think they were expecting from Calle Jarnkrok when they signed him. You're seeing what we saw in the preseason. So it's clear that whatever injury, because I know they said that he was dealing with something before he was sidelined.
Yeah.
So it's clear that something was bothering him because this is the best he has looked all season. And it's given, we've talked about that second line spot with Tavares and Marner being a bit of a concern because they're not getting much from there. I don't know if he's going to be the long-term solution, but he is definitely filling that role admirably right now. He's producing offensively. Keefe clearly trusts him defensively. You saw that late in the game when it was him jumping over the board with Matthews and Marner and not, a guy like Michael Bunting who usually would take that role. So I think he's earning the coach's trust. He's got goals in consecutive games. Let's see how far the Calle train can go.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got, since returning from that injury back on December 20th, so just 3 games, but he's got 2 goals and 3 assists, so 5 points through the 3 games since returning onto that second line alongside Tavares and Mitch Marner. So Calle Jarnkrok was also my second star of the game for a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned. I mean, a goal, 2 helpers, you end up with 3 points on the night. Not a whole lot of time, just 15 minutes of ice time. So, pretty efficient when he was out there, registered an assist as well, I guess, technically, or a hit as well tonight. So, I just think that Calle Jarnkrok, like a lot of this, I'm just going to echo a lot of the same sentiments that you made. It seems like he's starting to produce the way that they thought he could, be that kind of secondary point producer that they thought, maybe this guy's worth locking up for the next 4 years. It's up to 7 goals now. I just think that Jarnkrok is starting to figure things out here with Toronto. And, it's going to give Sheldon Keefe and company in another option there, at least in the top 6. It seems to have worked so far. We'll see if he can keep it going. Does that mean that the first star is being given to the game-winning goal scorer in Bill Nye, the backhand guy, David?
Bill Nye, the Jordan Binnington, your jockstrap was out in the crowd tonight, guy. Like, what a back! It was brought up in the Discord as soon as that goal was scored, which is there any Leaf better at scoring on breakaways than William Nylander?
No, there's no. Like Auston Matthews isn't that good. William Nylander. And the thing about Willie is, I felt like he last season was good for 2 a game. It seemed like 2 breakaways a game. And this year that hasn't happened as much, but we're starting to see him start to really break through and get those now. And that was just an outstanding play. Like the explosiveness to fight off Tarasenko, who's a big boy. Like that's a big dude. He's leaning on you. That's easy to kind of, not be able to shake that off, but shakes it off. And then just 3 or 4 quick strides, powerful, explosive strides, breaks away from Tarasenko, who was a little tired at the end of his shift, but still, and creates that separation to make it be a one-on-one against the goaltender. And then, makes Binnington go down and forehand, backhand, shelf, chef's kiss. Beautiful. And, for the same reason we were talking about Matthews and Bunting and how they were successful all night creating, well, he's the third guy on that line who's also in there creating a whole lot. So, Nylander, he was bound to score, tonight, and waited until the most important time, I guess, in overtime. That's what now, 2 straight overtime wins for the Maple Leafs. I think there was the win against Calgary a couple weeks ago, and now they get the victory here in OT. So, hey, the overtime demons, maybe they're long gone here because they seem to have figured something out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was a little concerned. Like, I knew they were going to put out David Kampf just because, you kind of want to tire out the top line of the Blues, but I didn't expect this Leafs team to just go a full minute without touching the puck in overtime. And that was getting a little concerning. And then obviously things changed when Brody got that penalty shot.
Like when you have TJ Brody out there, though, you feel better about when you're defending 3-on-3 in OT.
Yeah.
I never understood why. And I remember bringing this up way earlier, like back in maybe the first overtime loss they suffered to New Jersey, which is back in early November, mid-November, maybe.
Yeah.
When that happened. And I remember saying, why don't the Leafs, and this was actually when Brody got injured, so it wasn't possible for him to go out there, but I'm like, why, instead of starting Morgan Riley at the time, why wouldn't a guy like TJ Brody be the player who starts, just so that if you have your 2 offensive guys, but you also have Brody as that little safety blanket, and it seems like that is happening more often, whether it's Brody or Liljegren, who's I guess reliable defensively, can be. I just feel like they are, the one day they had the other game they had 2 defensemen out there, and then Matthews, and it's like you could tell that they're doing something different, and it's working.
Yeah, because you get the ability where if you get that possession right away, you can quickly change someone off, right? But obviously, the Leafs have also realized that, it's early on in the overtime. They just want to wear down the other opponent. I thought Liljegren was really good in overtime. Like, he had to be a bit of the steady guy at times just because, Brody was going up in the play or, St. Louis was really pressuring. And I thought Liljegren was really good in that overtime. The Leafs, when Riley went down, you're just trying to figure out who would be the guy in those situations. I think Timothy Liljegren would be a perfect guy because I think, he can kind of do it on both ends of the ice. I mean, Brody is not a bad idea either. I was a little surprised that Giordano maybe didn't get up there.
I feel people forget that TJ Brody, when he was in junior, was like an offensive defenseman. He came out of the draft.
He was in Calgary.
When he was in Calgary early in his career, he was like a 40-point defenseman. Early on,
Giordano get that Norris
Yeah, but even then, he had more so morphed into more of a defensive guy. But early in his career, he was an offense. He was thought of as an offensive guy, 2-way guy, but a guy with offense. And now we almost as if we think about him as a pure defensive shutdown defenseman, and he has no offensive abilities. I mean, the guy has had 40-point seasons in the NHL. He can do it. So if you put him out there on 3-on-3, like he's smart enough that he can make those first pass, up to the skill guys and they can go do their thing. So I mean, now that he's healthy and he's able to hop in there and he's able to be a part of 3-on-3 overtime. And I mean, apparently he's a threat offensively too. Ends up all alone and forces a penalty shot. He did nothing with it, obviously. But I mean, still force a penalty shot. I want to ask you this question actually, and then we'll take a break after this and get into some Team Canada stuff. But in a situation like that, Dave, when you have a player who is not likely to score on that penalty shot, right? So let's say it was maybe a Zach Aston Reese or Pierre Engvall or TJ Brody or Justin Hall, any of these guys. If they get the penalty shot, I think you should be able to choose, or if any penalty shot is awarded, you should be able to choose if you want the power play or the penalty shot. And then if it's a guy like Brody or Justin Hall or anyone who has stone mitts, you say, no, we elect for the power play instead. I believe you should get the choice of which you would rather have.
See, I thought you were going to go with the direction of they should have the choice of who takes the penalty shot.
No, I don't think that should be the case. I mean, I know that's in international rules. That's the situation there. I don't believe that because I think whoever gets the breakaway should have to take that breakaway shot. So it's like, okay, if you were going to score, go ahead. Now you get your free look. I understand that. And I don't have a problem with it. But I think that it would be more beneficial, I guess, and it would create more offense maybe even. And even, would put more spin, more fun into the game if the coach and the team has to decide, well, are we going to take the penalty or are we going to do the penalty shot? If it's a guy like William Nylander, okay, you're going to go for the penalty shot, clearly. Yeah. But in that situation where it's Brody, it's like, maybe we'd be better off with an extra man for 2 minutes.
I think TJ Brody would, looking at his reaction after the penalty shot, I'm pretty sure he agrees with you on that one.
Yeah.
Even the Discord was kind of like, I kind of wish we had the choice to defer to a power play, which I don't mind that because it's a penalty regardless. I have no issue with that. I just think that they also you get a chance to end the game right there. You kind of want to take it most of the time. But I think, coaches will realize, do I want TJ Brody, who only has 1 goal in the season and isn't exactly tested well in the shootout, to be the one taking the penalty shot? Probably not. I would probably go for the power play because the Leafs are actually really good on the power play in overtime. So I would take the higher percentage play, which is the power play, but it's not the rule, unfortunately. We did not get that in our Christmas stockings.
Yeah, no, we did not. But maybe that is something that Gary Bettman and company could talk about at the next GM meeting that they're at, or whatever meeting discusses those.
Excuse they have to go to Boca Raton, Florida.
Board of Governors or whatever it is. Anywho, why don't we take a quick break? When we get back, we'll spend a couple of minutes here chatting about Team Canada and their loss. And then they got a game tonight as well. So we can kind of tee that up as well. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morris Studios and the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. I know typically we stick to Leafs-related stuff, but it's Christmas time, which means it's World Junior time. And most people who track the Toronto Maple Leafs and want to come and listen to people talk about hockey and the Leafs probably also are Team Canada fans and are also tracking what's going on with the World Juniors. So throughout the next week and a half or so until January 5th, after the championship has been given, the gold medal has been given, we'll also be kind of tracking what's going on with Team Canada and the World Junior Championships as well. And for those who watched the game on Boxing Day, I imagine most of you guys did, you're probably just as PO'd as Dave and I when they walked away with a 5-2 loss in the first game of the tournament against Czechia. And look, credit to Czechia, man. Like that's a good team. They also went and dummied with Latvia today, like 9-0 or something like that. So they're a good hockey team. They got a really some quality players. A couple of high-end draft picks from last year, and also this year another couple of draft picks who are coming from that squad. So they're a good team, but on paper they're still not as good as Team Canada is, Dave. And there's no reason for Canada to lose 5-2 to Czechia at that. I mean, what went wrong, do you think, against Czechia for you?
I think a couple things. Goaltending, I think, was number one on my list. Like, I know a lot of talk was about the Michigan attempts by Bedard in that game, and yeah, you know what? It's probably when you're struggling to get offense going, especially early. Maybe don't try those things. But I'm not totally against it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it's just like a shot attempt on that. I'm not gonna fault those guys for trying it. I just think that, defensively Canada wasn't at their best either. Czechia took it to them. They were disciplined. I think Canada lacked the discipline, but I still also just think that they went with the wrong goaltender to start the game. I didn't understand it going into the game. Like, you look at the numbers of these two guys. One guy has he had Peter Mrazek numbers, and you got this you have Thomas Milic, who's been really pretty solid in the WHL. Like, I did not understand that. To start your tournament, you kind of want to avoid what just happened, which is everyone kind of going, uh-oh, first game, and you're getting, it wasn't even close, really, because they just, Czechia took it to them in the second period. Like, that's pretty demoralizing.
Yeah. I mean, the penalty that made it 4-2, 5-2, and really allowed them to build on that lead. I mean, some people aren't going to like the call, the match penalty, and giving him a 5-minute major, and allowing them to, I guess, score that way. I'm not going to complain. I guess on that one, it was the follow through was a bit of a check to the head, but regardless, I think you're right. Goaltending kind of let them down. A couple of those goals you just can't allow. So Ben Gaudreau just didn't have a great game, and Milicic came in, and I thought that he kind of settled the ship a little bit once he did enter. And I think Canada, sometimes you switch up the goalie as a message to your team, and that seemed like one from Dennis Williams, like, hey, let's get it going here. Like, we're not helping Ben at all. This is a wake-up call by taking him out of the game. And I thought that in the third period, they put a little bit more stern, I guess you could say. But overall, they were too cute. And I'm not just talking about the Michigan attempts that they were making there in the first period, but like trying to toe drag. They were trying all these cross-ice passes, trying to deke through the legs of the defenseman. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of straight line, take the puck to the net. They look like the Maple Leafs early on in the season when they were rolling through and struggling on that California road trip. That's what it looked like. And Czechia sat there and said, hey, if we just play structured and wait for them to try something cute, and then, they make a mistake, force a turnover, I mean, we can capitalize on that. And they were able to do that. And then they were able to also capitalize on the power play as well. So that ultimately, I think, special teams, poor goaltending, and then just, being a little too cute early on in the game, to me is what really cost Canada in that game. And I would expect, they've got Germany tonight. I would expect for Canada to play a little bit more of a north-south game as opposed to an east-west game, and maybe bottle up that cuteness a little bit and try and just, play hockey and score goals as opposed to get themselves on SportsCenter and on every highlight reel they could.
My other thing, too, is I hope that penalty, the legal check to the head, doesn't take away from Canada maybe trying to be a little more assertive physically.
Yeah.
Like, that gets you into the game a little bit more. Look, AHF officiating is very frustrating at times, but there's ways to be physical without hitting a guy in a questionable way. But I think Canada needs to get into it a little bit more physically too, in the right way. Just make it a little tough. Like, Sweden got shut out by Germany got shut out by Sweden.
Yeah,
they're not exactly a team that I expect. They're not the Germany of old where they had
Mo Sider's not on that team.
Yeah.
Stutzla's not on that team. Albin Grew, and like they had some solid players a few years ago. It's that crop has rotated out, and now they're back to being kind of bottom feeders at this tournament.
And like Canada's got a bunch of guys here who are already drafted. I'm like expecting this to be a Connor Bedard. Like I think a pissed off Connor Bedard is one that I want to see how like is this going to be his like I'm PO'd to happen and I'm just going to take it to Germany because I think a game like that it's also I find that when Canada plays at home there's the pressure is definitely elevated, right? That's a tough. You want to make a good impression, but there's some nerves, I think. And these are young guys. We forget these are all under 20, 20 and under. These aren't seasoned veterans playing in a tournament like this. So, I think there was probably some nerves there. There's probably family. There's probably there's a lot riding on this tournament for some of these guys. So I think getting kind of that wake up call, I'm expecting a little bit of a different type of approach from Canada against Germany for sure.
What did you make of the goal song selection?
I'm of the belief that you can't just go to the same well all the time. It's why we've been, telling the Leafs that they need to change the goal song. I also, I mean, a lot of people were just really pissed off with the way the game was going. They're like, oh, if you spend more time worrying about the game and how you're playing on the ice than you are about the goal song, maybe you'd be doing better. I'm like, I don't think the players were worrying too much about the goal song, but I do like the fact that they changed it. It gets a little redundant, especially when you're, in the last round, you get like a 14-0 win for Canada, and you're like, all right, I think this goal song can be retired now. So I don't mind that they made a change. I do not mind change at all.
You didn't like "Hey Baby"? You didn't want "Hey Baby"?
I like the song. I actually think the crowd in Halifax would have loved "Hey Baby," but I also think
I think they appreciate this one more. Like this is an East Coast song. Like this is like a Scottish, like this is a Nova Scotian based song. Like my mother, who's from Nova Scotia, when she heard this song go and they scored, she's like, "Oh my God, it's Heave Away!" And I was like, "Makes sense. They're in Halifax. It makes sense that this is the song that they decided to do." I think. Are we allowed to play it? Are we gonna get flagged if we play it?
Oh, we'll get flagged 1,000%. But funny enough, like when I heard that song, it made me think back to a project when we were in school together that I used for like a Briar, the Briar when it was in Halifax.
Yeah.
Just kind of that Heave Away is like the transcendent Halifax song. Like I'm not surprised it's not their national anthem now.
It's like a Newfie song. I believe it was written by like the band The Fables. I think come from Newfoundland.
Yep.
So it's not like a Nova Scotian band, I suppose, but
they're from St. John's, Newfoundland.
They're all in that little pocket area. Like they're all Newfies, coasters, Atlantic Canada. Trust me, I have many family members from that area. I've got, my mom's from Cape Breton. If there's anyone from Cape Breton that listens to this podcast, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say they're a different breed there. And I can say that because I'm part Cape Bretoner through association with my mother and my grandmother and a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins that still currently live there. But they certainly appreciated the song that they chose there. Well, Dave, let's hope for a much better result tonight. Hopefully we can listen to that song more than just twice. I only had to listen to it a couple times. Maybe 6, 7, 8, perhaps. Maybe would be nice. Nice big victory to avenge the loss that they had suffered on Boxing Day and put a lot of Canada back on ease, because I saw so many people tweeting away, "Oh, the team, great on paper, but they're all just a bunch of wussies and they play soft and skilled and yada yada." A lot of the same stuff we heard back when the Leafs were struggling early on this season. Seems like a lot of the same parallels, could be drawn there. And well, look where the Leafs are at now. So maybe they just need to find their footing And they got to do it a lot quicker than the Leafs did, that's for sure. They don't have a month to correct themselves and find their footing. But hopefully they can somewhat get it done tonight against Germany. They'll be at 6:30. Obviously, you can watch it on TSN. And then the Leafs, it's an off day for them, and then they're back in action. They've got the Arizona Coyotes on Thursday. So we will be back tomorrow to tee that game up. We'll also break down this Canada game as well, probably. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms, receive daily Leafs content. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Over 50% of our viewership still are non-subscribers.
What's going on?
We have so many returning viewers. Something don't add up. Some of y'all aren't subscribing. Just subscribe. Do us a solid. Do us a favor. Do yourself
free holiday gift to us.
Yes.
Come on.
We got to beat Locked On Habs. We got to get to 5K before them. That's the goal, and that's what we've set for ourselves. So we can only do that by the help of you wonderful, wonderful listeners. You can also leave a comment down below. We'll respond to anything down below if you'd like. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. But until then, keep locked right here on Locked On Leafs.